Hi, and welcome to another edition of Punk Rock Politics with John Smith. Make sure to subscribe to this channel and don't miss any independent, honest, well-documented evidence and reporting that the mainstream media / corporate media refuses to give you. When only 5 media companies own all of your TV channels, you know there's something wrong. Now we're going to discuss a video. I've done multiple videos about Tara Reade, and out of 5 billion YouTube users, one of the people commented in one of the 2 videos and said that when he searched Tara Reade on the internet, on YouTube specifically, on the YouTube app, or at least on YouTube on a computer or something, I was one of 8 videos that used a tag, which is like something you type on YouTube to find your video that's relevant to your video. And he typed in Tara Reade, Joe Biden's sexual assault accuser and harassment accuser, one of many harassment accusers, who seems to have a very credible story. Now, this new video that came out tonight, I believe, or today, from Christo Vallis, says that a new poll shows the majority of Americans believe Tara Reade over Joe Biden. So enough to interrupt the video, understand that the largest proportion of registered voters are independents, meaning they're not part of any party. The second highest are Democrats, and then the lowest of these parties are the Republican Party. Now, there's other parties like Green Party, Democratic Socialists of America, Working Families Party that are allowed to at least operate in New York, which gives more power to independent voices, which you should check out and we should do here. But at the same time, New York, up until not too long ago, and maybe still, made you register as one of the major parties, Republican or Democrat, in order to vote in only the Republican or Democratic primaries. So in California, they have open primaries, but most states, as far as I understand, unless they've changed this, 46 or more states do not allow you to vote unless you register before the primary, and sometimes it's a week, sometimes it's 6 months, sometimes it's 180 days, like New York, who claims to be a progressive state, and Andrew Cuomo, who's another Donald Trump with a D in front of his name instead of an R, and is very corrupt and very dishonest and very disingenuous and very manipulative. He's just He's just a better speaker than Trump and manipulates people very well. I did a 4-part series about how Andrew Cuomo was the worst. You should definitely check it out. He is the worst. Trust me. If you think you support him, it's just because there's a very low bar set with Trump and you feel he comforts you during this insane outbreak. But he's one of the reasons, and this is a different video I've done recently about about Andrew M. Cuomo, the governor of New York, and how he paved the way for the coronavirus by cutting a ton of funding for hospitals, closing down hospitals, getting rid of a ton of beds, and he is still fighting and has cut Medicaid, and recently did something very authoritarian where he has control of the budget after they get money from the federal government by keeping in the current funding of Medicaid. But as soon as that happens and they get the money from the federal government, he's going to retroactively, like after the fact, go back into the budget and then cut funding for Medicaid, which is extremely ridiculous. But he forced pretty much everybody to vote for it because they needed certain things to address the crisis now. He's an authoritarian, he's a dangerous person, and he is not your friend, and he should have never been the governor of New York. He's a sexist, he's a racist, he's a liar, and he doesn't even like talking to his constituents, and he hides from people. He's just an awful person with a terrible record who steals progressive valor and claims that he is a progressive when he couldn't be anything further from a progressive. So, let's check out this video about Tara Reade, Joe Biden's accuser, and let's see this new poll shows a majority of Americans believe Tara Reade over Joe Biden. This is from Christo Ivalis. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. He does a pretty cool show. Let's check it out, and then I'll comment later. So just keep in mind, again, that the largest amount of voters that are registered to vote in this country are independents. The next number are Democrats, but it's still a huge gap between them, and a very large gap between Democrats and Republicans, Republicans are the lowest number of registered people out of Republicans, Democrats, and independents. So keep that in mind when somebody says, oh, Democrats believe this and Republicans believe that. It's not 50-50. There's more Democrats. Independents believe this and Democrats believe that. Well, there's more registered independents. Independents and Republicans. Well, there's way more registered independents than Republicans. So anyway, let's check out this video. Unfortunately, I already made this video, and this new editing app did not save it. So let's hope that doesn't happen again, because I will lose my mind if it does. But I'll still make the video all over again. So let's go.
So we have some breaking news that a new The Hill Harris X poll shows that a majority of American voters believe Tara Reade over Joe Biden. This poll shows that while a majority of Democrats believe Joe Biden and a majority of Republicans believe Tara Reade, a majority of independents, a narrow majority, but a majority nonetheless, actually believe Tara Reade. And that when you add up the data, it's basically 53-50 Americans believing Tara Reade over Joe Biden. And this is very significant because it's showing that when you ask a typical average registered voter, they are more likely to believe Tara Reade than Joe Biden. And the election is still 6 months away or so. This story's not going away if 53% of people polled are in the I believe Tara Reade camp. So this hope from the Biden campaign that ignoring the Tara Reade story and then sort of calling Tara Reade a liar without directly saying that she's a liar, that strategy hasn't worked. The Tara Reade has been credible in my eyes. She's credible in the eyes of a majority of Americans. And this story will not just fade away for the benefit of Biden and the corporate Democrat elite. Again, if we throw up the chart, you can see that this is a partisan story. A majority of Republicans believe Tara Reade. A majority of Democrats believe Joe Biden. I'm sure that when the Brett Kavanaugh story was in the news, it would be the direct inverse. We don't want to admit it, but as Chris Hayes noted on MSNBC a couple of weeks ago, the whole problem with how we report on stories of women encountering powerful men is that whether or not we believe the woman or the man depends on their political affiliation. And that's the very, very sad truth. But it is important to realize here that among independents who aren't necessarily automatically partisan to either Biden or Trump or against Biden or Trump, that 51-49, they're with Tara Reade. And 30% of Democrats believe Tara Reade. That's a substantive portion. It's a minority, of course. It's not even close to a majority. But 30%, nearly a third of Democrats, do not believe Joe Biden. People who, according to the partisan political reality, should just believe Joe Biden because it's more convenient, still don't. That's extremely telling. And there are 24% of Republicans that are with Joe Biden, but that's a smaller portion. That doesn't work out well for Biden and his campaign. And I really do feel fundamentally that this shows the weakness of the Biden campaign going forward. It's not just, Biden can't communicate. It's not his cognitive decline and dementia. It's not even just the fact that he's running on a moderate platform that will fail to register any sort of excitement with independents, any sort of excitement with infrequent voters, any sort of excitement with young voters. It's the fact that this scandal will continue to be used by his opponents as long as they feel it appeals to more voters than it doesn't. If this story was instantly unpopular with Americans, then it would go away. It would. If 80% of people believe Joe Biden, even if Tara Reade was telling the truth, the sad political reality is this story would be gone. But because it's a narrow majority for Tara Reade, you can bet your britches this story's going to go till November or till something significantly changes in terms of the patterns of belief between Tara Reade and Joe Biden, like whose side the majority of people are on. Now, there's a couple things here in this poll that might give a bit of a silver lining to Joe Biden, but I would suggest that that silver lining might also be a bit of a pitfall. It does suggest right now that if you could 100% prove that Tara Reade was telling the truth, like if you had video evidence, 57% of voters feel he should drop out, and nearly half of Democrats. Now, I still find that disturbing, that even if it's 100% true, 43% of Democrats or so would still want Joe Biden to run. I feel that's abhorrent. But what it does show is, in a hypothetical universe, people would want Biden to drop out if it could be proven. But because it can't definitively be proven. Most voters right now, at least, don't think Biden should drop out, because unless they can have definitive, proof one way or the other, they don't want to make a decision. And basically, a majority of people right now feel that the burden of proof in terms of whether Biden should drop out and things like that still rests with Tara Reade. So Tara Reade needs to find a way to make Biden definitively guilty, then Biden definitively say that he's innocent. That bodes well for Biden in the short term. But this story is not new. It's been percolating for the past couple months almost, but it's still relatively new in the mindset of mainstream media watchers. If you don't watch me or Katie Halper or Ryan Grim or The Hill or any of these sorts of sources,
Or punk rock politics.
I've been hearing about this story for 3 weeks now, and Biden's only acknowledged it like a week and a half ago, and he's only spoken about it once or twice total, I believe. I know with Mika Brzezinski, he also mentioned it in his interview with George Stephanopoulos, but fundamentally, this story's still sort of new, and a lot of voters haven't started to pay attention yet. And there's nothing to say that as this story gets more and more attention, and people listen to Tara Reade more and more, and maybe we get even more corroborating evidence, because at first it was just Tara Reade telling her story, and a lot of us believed her then, but maybe people were skeptical. But then we got, a series of transcripts from the Larry King live show in 1993, where her mother called in talking about Tara Reade's story, and it matched up the timelines. And then we got a former neighbor of Tara Reade, who's an admitted Biden supporter, saying that Tara Reade told this story in the mid-1990s. And we also got a former colleague of Tara Reade, once she moved to California, corroborate that something happened with Tara when she worked in a Senate office in Washington. And then we got records from a restraining order proceeding regarding her first husband, and in that report, her husband notes an incident in the Biden office. And again, each and every one of these things on their own is not a silver bullet. But taken together, combined with all of the circumstantial evidence, combined with what I feel is a credible statement from Tara Reade, in the court of public opinion, the drips are starting to fill that sink. I've used that analogy before. Each drip is just a drip, but a whole bunch of drips can make a sink overflow. And we're not at the election yet. So, this poll is good news for Biden in the sense that a majority of people don't want to see him drop out yet because it hasn't been proven. But a majority of people in their gut don't believe him. And if this election is close, it would not surprise me if this costs Joe Biden victory, if this costs Democrats the victory. And I know every time I talk about this, people will say, well, what about Trump and the many people that have made claims against Trump? And what I've said before, and I'll say it again, it is not fair, but people that are considering voting Republican do not have the same standards that people who would consider voting Democrat. It's just the way it is. There are lots of people out there that will vote for Trump no matter what. And there are a lot of people that will vote for Biden no matter what. But those voters the Democrats need to win, that have certain moral standards, will not vote for Joe Biden if they believe Tara Reade. And if it's a close election, they will lose because of it. So the Democrats have to start realizing that they have a candidate that has a hard time communicating, has policies out of step with independents and his own party, and has an awful scandal with a credible witness. If they don't think this is the time to use every institutional lever they have to replace him, then it's almost like they want to lose in November.
It's a great point. And the Democratic Party, the elites and the corporate Democrats, half or more depending on your view, or the worst ones, which is definitely the majority of Democrats, corporate Democrats, definitely want Trump to win so they can continue to do nothing for the vast majority of Americans, arguably the 99% and below, and definitely the bottom 80% who have no say in policy, or else we'd have a Green New Deal a very long time ago, literally like 20 years ago. For many years, starting back in 2000, they took extensive and very big and reliable polls of large groups of people in all states, red and blue. Every single state, red or blue. It's a myth that it's not true. This is political science. This is science. This is data. over 50% of people in every state, 50% or more, said they chose environment over jobs. The irony is that if you pick a healthy environment, you create more jobs. But anyway, you get the point, right? That was the old talking point of corporate Democrats and almost all Republicans, at least in like the Senate and the House of Representatives. Now, just to be clear, there are a few Republicans that are getting a little more moderate or left wing on certain issues, finally, like they used to be, where the Republican Party and Democratic Party, like Bernie Sanders, could be a moderate in either party in the 20s, 30s, 40s, or 50s, especially the 30s to or the 20s to 40s. So it's important to note that Joe Biden should resign, he should step down, and that Bernie Sanders has been beating Trump more than any other politician consistently since 2014, literally, and by big numbers. In fact, in about 2 months ago, Bernie Sanders was beating Donald Trump in 45 of our 50 states and territories. Also winning in, I think, all their most territories. And not just winning, but winning with some states as high as 21 or 22%, other states 10 or 11%. And Joe Biden has worse poll numbers than Hillary Clinton did this time around, and he's even worse candidate. He has a long history of habitually lying. He is a racist, a homophobe, a religious zealot, a liar, an opportunist, and he's just another right-wing Republican with a D in front of his name. Even if he says he would do things Republicans won't do, it's all a joke and it would never get done, or it would only get done in a very conservative way that Republicans pretend they don't want, but that's exactly what they want. Now, Joe Biden should drop out and they should reopen the primaries. Don't forget, candidates like Bernie Sanders, who only suspended their campaign, can still amass delegates, and you should absolutely vote for the person, the only person, who isn't taking corporate money in either party of the two major parties in the race, and he's the longest sitting independent in the House of Representatives. You should vote for Bernie Sanders for policy, and you should make sure each state we have closed primaries in this country, and it's very terrible, and it prevents democracy, and that's why you have to register as a Democrat or Republican well before the election. In some cases like New York, in states that pretend to be progressive with crazy authoritarian right-wing politicians with a D in front of their name like Andrew Cuomo, and trust me, look at my four-part politics series. Andrew Cuomo was the worst with all the evidence I provide. It's just insane amount of evidence. And a newer video I did about how he's directly responsible for the spread of the coronavirus pandemic in New York. Just because he's better than Trump, that's a very low bar. Just because he's more competent or more and better at manipulating people doesn't mean he's a better person or a better politician, and he's far from a progressive. He's the opposite. So anyway, get out there and vote. Make sure you're registered, unfortunately, currently, with the current system. But this is something Bernie Sanders is one of the only politicians that's running for president, both in 2016 and to 2020, that's saying we need to have ranked choice voting where you can go and vote in one open primary in your state. It should be done at the federal level. It should be a federal law. And you could vote for your top 3 or 5 choices. So if those are even more, so if those people drop out, your second choice goes if the first person drops out. Your third choice goes if that second person drops out, so on and so forth. It's more democracy, and you can vote for any party. And we need to allow more people to be on the debate stage, meaning you can't just use NBC, ABC, CBS, CNN, MSNBC, ABC, Disney, and Fox News polls and other mainstream online or newspaper outlets control polls and skew polls to alienate other parties from operating. Many other countries have a lot more freedom and democracy and oversight than we do, and it's because they allow multiple parties. So, Tara Reade has a very credible claim, and he said this is each piece of evidence that continues to amass alone is not a silver bullet, but together combined they are. He actually left out some very important pieces of evidence in the Tara Reade accusation of sexual assault against Joe Biden, and one of them is, and it's very important, as I covered in my other 2 videos about the topic about Tara Reade, which got got a decent amount of views, and hopefully you check them out too and share them. And eventually I will put the those boxes with the thumbnails or the image you see before you hit play at the end of this video when I figure that out. My buddy, who I really appreciate, helps me figure that out. One of the only people really helping me with all this. So anyway, essentially, Tara Reade Look at the history of complaints about harassment and other issues that Tara Reade had and how she was downside. And many of her employees said that after she made some harassment complaints or complained about being retaliated against when she was saying certain things were unfair and she was being mistreated and retaliated against, look at how she was demoted. And then look at about how when she how Joe Biden is lying and saying that if it's not in the National Archives, then then she didn't file a complaint and I'm innocent. Well, that's nonsense. And the papers should be in. And Christo, this guy didn't bring it up, and he should have. Of Alice was saying how the papers would be in the University of Delaware, Joe Biden papers that they hold, and because you would have to file extensively more and spend a lot more time and effort and research and maybe pay somebody a lot of money in order to figure this all out, in order for the record to be held, to be open to the public, you have to do a lot more when you file. And the record will be sealed until 2043, according to the actual government agency that that Joe Biden talks about. So he was being dishonest, and the Joe Biden campaign made sure that Tara Reade couldn't get a job in Washington, D.C., doing what she loves. And she believed in Joe Biden deeply. And if you listen to her story, you listen to my other two videos, or even the extended interview that's even longer by Katie Halper and Jimmy Dore is the way I caught this. He was showing this story. And again, I was the first of 8 people that you searched Tara Reade about 5 or 6 weeks ago that was covering this story. So Punk Rock Politics brings you the stories that matter most and that the corporate mainstream media are not covering. In fact, they didn't cover it until after Bernie Sanders suspended and dropped out of the campaign, and possibly even until he endorsed Joe Biden, I believe, and that was intentional. So Bernie Sanders, you could still vote for him. He only suspended his campaign. You absolutely should. He's the only candidate that isn't taking corporate money. And Tara Reade is either the best actress ever, or Joe Biden sexually assaulted her. And you say you want to replace a dangerous, incompetent, delusional president with another dangerous, incompetent, delusional president. You want to replace Donald Trump. This is what the Democratic Party claims. But they don't really want to do that. They want him to win so they can keep all their money, so they can not actually work hard or offer you any policies, and so they can keep stealing elections. Now, Bernie Sanders wants to bring about more democracy in every way. And he wants to stop funding foreign wars and get rid of the corruption in government, so our tax dollars actually go to having clean air, clean water, better education, and better opportunities for all Americans. So, Tara Reade's story is very serious, and Joe Biden is a bad candidate even without this story. But the fact that 43% of Democrats said they will vote for Joe Biden no matter what is scary. But the more this story comes out, I think that will change. And the majority of registered voters in America believe Tara Reade over Joe Biden because, again, she's either the best actress in the world or she's telling the truth. Listen to the video. Check out my other videos that show different segments of her interview. Again, she's either the best actress to ever walk the face of the earth, or she's definitely telling the truth. And there's so much evidence to back it up. So please share this video, comment, and make sure to subscribe to Punk Rock Politics. Go to patreon.com/punkrockpolitics and become a patron today. Thanks for watching. Everybody stay safe and be good out there. And don't forget to fight the power.